Right. Andrew DeCagna of Ironflame. Welcome to 69 Faces of Rock. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. I'm good. Before we get to talk about the new album, which, by the way, is excellent, can you kind of explain, especially to any new fans, how does Ironflame work?
It works. Well, it's not your normal band dynamic in the respect that we all get together and write songs together and then go into the studio and record them. It mainly comes from my brain. I record all the music and all the instruments myself, except for guitar solos. And then I will present those almost finished songs to the band. I will have my live guitar players perform guitar solos on the album, and then I will mix and master it myself and release it that way. So it kind of works differently than your normal band dynamic.
Oh, and actually, we had been seeing a little bit more of that. I believe Athenar of Midnight is doing the same thing.
Yeah, High Spirits.
That was my next choice, since I know Chris really well locally here. Yeah, it works either way. You onto something special here. Anyways, so let's get to the new album. Tell me about the songwriting process for Where Madness Dwells.
It was, well, I mean, I approached it tactfully, at least it's the same way. I recorded everything in the same fashion, but it was a little different in the respect that the songwriting had changed a little bit. Up until now, the songwriting relied heavily on guitar harmonies, and the hooks of each song would kind of revolved around those guitar harmonies. This time around, I went for a more riff-based approach, and I put a little more emphasis on song structuring as opposed to the way I did things before, which was very methodical, and as far as verse, chorus, middle part with the solo, repeat the chorus again, and then we're done. I tried to purposefully arrange things differently this time, and instead of the main guitar harmonies being the hooks of the song and like repeating during the choruses, I saved them and rearranged them a bit, and you would hear, a guitar harmony would get introduced at the end of a solo section that you never heard before. Like I said, most of the verse and the choruses were much more based either on the riff itself or the vocal melody or harmony, instead of everything hinging off those hooky guitar harmonies. That was the main difference, I'd say, this time around.
As a sole writer, how do you space everything in your head?
It's tough. The biggest challenge, I think, is the challenge that I think every songwriter faces once they continue to write music under the identity of a certain band, is not repeating yourself, but at the same time retaining the identity of the band that got people into the music in the first place. I think that's a really tough line to straddle, and I'm constantly checking myself and making sure that I'm still doing those things and remaining true to the original identity of the band while still growing and not just creating a carbon copy of the albums that I had released in prior years.
Mm-hmm. How do you approach the recording process as someone who records just about everything?
It's I guess to some people it could be a little unorthodox, but it always starts out with the riff. I will get a riff in my head and I'll lay it out, and then that's normally followed by another complementary riff, hopefully. And by the end of it, I have a handful of riffs that all complement each other that I feel at the end of the day I can arrange a song out of. And if I feel that confident on that, then I move on and I repeat the process. So at the end of that phase, it's just a bunch of riffs kind of laying on a table. And then I'll take those riffs and I will arrange them to where I feel, a song is made, and I'll build a song out of that. Once I do that with each and every song, then the foundation that you're seeing is basically all just rhythm guitars alongside a click track. And then from there, I start layering on the other instruments, and it would be in the order of drums will go next, and then I'll do the bass after that. Then I will normally do the vocal, and the last thing in line is normally always the guitar solos, because like I said, I subcontract that out to my live guitarists to handle those duties, because I am woefully inept at writing or performing a guitar solo. So that's normally the last thing to go down before the mixing and mastering process occurs.
Is it tough being your only critic during this process?
Yeah, it's incredibly tough. There are a few choice, very close friends that I have who are also musicians that sometimes if I'm doubting myself, I will give them a sneak peek and a listen and say, hey, am I going down the right path here, or am I repeating myself? Am I retaining my true vision and my true identity? These people have, heard Ironflame since day one, so they know the essence of the band, and they can give me the outside opinion of whether I'm doing it right or straying the path. And it's rare. I like to try and keep it all to myself and be my own worst critic up until the very end. But normally, before the album comes out, at least one or two other pairs of ears have heard a song or two, just to set my own mind at ease, to know that I'm keeping it true and I'm going down the right path.
Mm-hmm. Vocally, what would you say you are striving for?
Well, I think that the vocals have evolved a little bit over the years, and especially now. I think this band really taught me how to sing properly and focus on enunciation and delivery. I think I always had the emotions there, but I couldn't deliver them quite so eloquently until this band came about. And I think I've honed that pretty well over the last few albums. But this album, I think that you'll notice that there's plenty of clean singing and smooth vocal, if you will, but there is an introduction of grit that I may have touched on in previous albums, but I think it's a lot more present in the songs on this album. And I think it wasn't really intentional. I think it's kind of it was a subconscious reflection of the overall attitude of the album, because the album is a much more serious, and it's kind of it's less triumphant and epic, and it's more a little angry, and it's a little sad, and it's a little more aggressive than previous efforts, and I think the vocal delivery is reflected in that.
Let's talk about the songs, and I will throw you probably all the titles from the album. But from the intro to Everlasting Fire, one can definitely sense that the lyrics will be serious. Tell me about that song.
That song, there was no doubt in my mind that had to be the first song. The album is somewhat of a concept. It's not really a story per se, but the concept, the recurring theme, if you will, is madness. And the first song I wanted to convey, basically, I wanted to take the listener and drop the listener off in a hellish environment and make it clear that there's no one coming back around to pick them up and take them home. So that's exactly what Everlasting Fire is lyrically. It's a descent into the fires of hell, and it's basically saying that there's no way that you're ever going to return to your happy place, and to get used to this new hell that is your home now. So that's why it had to be the first song.
God save us all.
Right?
Under the Spell.
Under the Spell is everything on here is very allegorical. Under the Spell is really at its core about mainstream media and the subconscious way that it gets into your brain and plants messages into your mind and your subconscious, and convinces you of things that may or may not be there, and basically sells its agenda to you whether you are aware of it or not. That's basically the premise of the song Under the Spell.
Kingdom of Lies.
Kingdom of Lies is another allegory, and it basically was my observations on the political climate that was going on around me at the time that it was being written, which was it was an election year. There was a lot of politics flying on all sides, a lot of talk, and it seemed like there was a lot of division going on within the country. And again, to me, it's a united we stand, divided we fall is like our mantra. And it was a really divided state, and it seemed like a world of chaos was around me. So it was my take on the madness that was flying around in the political spectrum at the time.
My early favorite, A Funeral Within.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. You're not the only person whose opinion that I value who has said that. So thank you. But that one is probably the most personal song on the album. And I will admit that musically, it's probably the most unique Ironflame song maybe we've ever done. And that it's the most personal because it's dealing with the death of my very close friend, my best friend, and my business partner, who passed away shortly before I started recording the album. We had owned a business for years. We were partners, and he was diagnosed with cancer a year and a half prior to that. And due to complications of the cancer, it took his life prematurely. And so that was kind of my way of dealing with his death and going through the grieving process lyrically to help me kind of exercise the demons that were going on in my soul as I was grieving for him.
I can certainly relate to this song on a variety of levels.
Thank you.
Ready to Strike.
Ready to Strike is probably the most lighthearted one on the album. It was the very last song written for the album. And I had and I tend to do this, I kind of start out with an idea and I kind of exhaust the ideas before I get to the very end. And this was no exception. I had the song written and I didn't really know what else to write about that dealt with madness. And so it's not a very serious song, really. It's, I guess, the most matter-of-fact song. There's no allegory to it. It's really just about being bitten by a venomous snake, and the thoughts and the madness that would go through one's mind as the poison starts coursing through your veins and slowly takes your life.
The Phantom Flame.
The Phantom Flame is a big allegory, and it's a deep one. You would really have to think about it, I guess. It's just about the triviality and the mundane nature of everyday life in the modern day workforce, and how we are basically in a hamster wheel, and we get up in our hamster wheel and run, and basically until we die, and we don't really get to enjoy life to the fullest because we're so hyper focused on the survival mentality of, money equals survival. And if I don't have money, I don't have stability. And if I don't have a job, then I don't have money. And so job equals survival. And just the, really when you think about it, that's kind of a concept of madness in and of itself. So it was kind of like my observation on that.
Right. A Curse Upon Mankind.
A Curse Upon Mankind is another allegory, and that would be a more obvious one, and that would be organized religion, not any one particular religion, but any popular, bigger religion seems to, wherever there's power, there is an abuse of power, it seems. It's a common recurring theme, and, people in those positions of authority in various religions tend to use their power to manipulate others to their own personal agendas and their own selfish desires. Well, it's been going on since almost the dawn of time. So, and it's as much as we have evolved as a species, we still cling tenaciously to these archaic beliefs and invisible beings that govern over our existence. And to me, that's kind of a concept of madness too. So I had to say my piece on that as well.
Yeah. Speaking of madness, this brings us to the last song and the final song, Where Madness Dwells, the title cut.
Yeah, and that one's where I kind of reverted back to my more epic, fantastic fantasy storytelling thing. It's not about any one thing in particular. I kind of tried to eloquently put different maddening themes that were going on around me and put them in a very story-like background. And I don't know, I try to create a universe within that song, if you will. And they're all, like I said, different little situations that were based on reality, but you can never tell because they were all shrouded and drenched in metaphor and allegory.
Sounds great. Now, after hearing all of these songs, what do you want the listener to feel?
I'm sorry?
After hearing all of these songs, what do you want the listener to feel?
Oh, well, I honestly, I felt very spiritually relieved after writing these songs and recording them. But then that was kind of followed by, I don't want to say a feeling of dread, but a feeling of apprehension that the normal Ironflame fan and listener may not take to it the way they've taken to previous albums, because it was a departure on the epic, fantastic, triumphant nature of songs that I've written up until this point. It's much more serious to me. There's really nothing uplifting about it. There's nothing triumphant about it. And to me, it's still very much heavy metal, and it's still very much Ironflame, but it was such a lyrical and emotional departure from the previous albums that I was really genuinely concerned that our old fan base might not latch onto it like they did the previous albums.
So it's still metal, but without the glory ride.
Exactly. And that's not to say that I'll never ever return to that ride ever again. It was just what I was feeling at the time.
Tell me about the album cover.
The album cover was done by an American artist named Michael Hoffman. I found Michael Hoffman's work originally. You have seen his work before, I'm sure, because he also did the cover artwork for Savage Master's Myth, Magic, and Steel album. He also did the artwork for that. I really, really liked the artwork for that album, and that's what drove me to seek him out, and found out that he was an American artist that wasn't too far from me geographically. So I reached out to him on social media, told him who I was and how I found him, and asked if he would be willing to license some of his pre-existing work. And he was very cooperative and very appreciative. And so he basically just gave me a list of his back catalog that was up for licensing, and the album art that I chose, it really couldn't have been anything else but that. As far as I'm concerned, as soon as I saw that, I knew that had to be the album art for Where Madness Dwells.
Excellent. Now, on the business front, you have a brand new label behind you. How did that happen?
High Roller. An honor to be on High Roller. I've been wanting to get onto High Roller Records for years now, ever since I heard High Spirits for the first time and noticed they were on High Roller. And then I dove back into the High Roller catalog and saw the level of quality that label was putting out. And High Spirits was a new band to me, and I was really obsessed with them at the time. And High Spirits was on High Roller, so I wanted to be on High Roller. So I did reach out to them a while back, and at the time that I did reach out to them, I think their roster was full, and they weren't taking on any new acts at the time, but they did take the time to respond to me and let me know that, which I did appreciate. And then this past year, I started working with a publisher, Sure Shot Works out of Germany. I started working with them, and they asked me who I wanted to work with in the future, label-wise, and High Roller was definitely on that list. So they were one of the first doors we knocked on. And thankfully this time the timing was right and the door opened, and we started working together.
So what plans do you have to promote this album?
Well, we've already begun the promotion process. The PR campaign has started this past month. We released a lyric video for Kingdom of Lies. That's the first single that we released. Next, in a few weeks, there'll be another video that's probably going to be a visualizer video for your favorite, Funeral Within. And then a few weeks after that, right before the album comes out, we actually filmed and professionally filmed and edited an actual performance video for Ready to Strike. And so that will come out right before the release of the album in July. And then we do have some festivals planned in the US. We've already played Blades of Steel, which you and I met at Blades of Steel Festival. We're playing this festival here, Descendants of Crom. We're playing that in Pittsburgh in June. Then later in June, we'll be playing Stormbringer Festival in New England. That's the inaugural year for that festival. And then at the end of July, we will be heading across the ocean and playing Headbangers Open Air. From that point, we're going to try, while we're over there, we're going to try and do a few select little club dates around the festival to make the most of our time in Europe.
When you play live, how much freedom does your live band, have to interpret those songs?
That's a very good question. They have all the liberty in the world because in all honesty, at their core, they are way better musicians than I am. They're more proficient, they're more talented, they have techniques that I don't have. So I encourage them to employ all those techniques. And if they hear something that is in their head but isn't on the album, I say, please, by all means, put it in the live performance, and it always enhances it. There are certain songs, I'm trying to think, like Graves of Thunder from the previous album. It has changed and evolved into such a beast of a live song to where when I hear the studio version now, it sounds so different and almost primitive to me because the band members have just put so much of themselves into the live version of that song that they're almost two completely different songs. It's just the live version is so much better. So yeah, I always encourage them to put whatever they want to in those live versions.
That's absolutely great. Andrew, I know that you are involved in many other projects, bands. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I've been involved in basically it's a recording project called Nechachwin since 2010. It's with my good friend Aaron, who goes under the moniker of Nechachwin. And it is a classically influenced folk black metal project. And it's been going on, like I said, since 2010. We're on our 5th full-length album now, I believe. It just came out a few weeks ago. It's called Canal Black. It's on Binary Recordings. And like I said, we're primarily just a recording project, but we have been prolific for the past 12 years. Well, it's been a project even longer than I've been involved in it. And then I've been involved in the band Brimstone Coven since 2011, which is a very dark, occult, 70s style hard rock / heavy blues type band that's more along the lines of Blue Oyster Cult meets Pentagram meets Black Sabbath meets Deep Purple. I'm the bass player and vocalist, partial vocalist in that band. The guitar player and I share vocal duties equally. Again, we are working on, I believe, album number 5 or 6. I can't keep track anymore, but we're working on a new album right now. We're on Ripple Music, and we should be in the studio by the fall working on that new album. And then I joined Icarus Witch in 2018 as their vocalist, and they need no introduction. They've been around since the early 2000s, well, it was when I recruited Quinn, their guitar player, to be the live guitarist for Ironflame, that he asked me to be the vocalist in Icarus Witch. So I'm a big fan of Icarus Witch, so it was an honor, and it was an easy yes for me to join that band. We recorded an album in 2019, 2018. 2019 again, I can't remember, but Goodbye Cruel World came out back then, and we're working on our second album right now. Pre-production is done. The songs are basically written, and we're getting ready to record them right now, and we will also be over in Europe at the same time Ironflame is playing songs or playing shows.
What would you say takes priority for you, band-wise, music-wise?
I can't say that anyone does. I love all of those projects equally for different reasons. And the biggest challenge being in that many projects is giving each one its due attention and its due time. And I obsess over that. I take that very seriously. And I really prioritize giving each project its proper attention and making sure that, I'm just as involved in the process of booking shows and playing shows and writing and recording and making sure every band is I'm being as an active part of each band as I possibly can, and I'm constantly trying to check myself with my bandmates on that too. Like, look, hey, if you ever feel like I'm not contributing or I could be stepping it up more, please tell me, because I don't want to do that. I always want to make each band an equal priority in my own mind.
Mm-hmm. The name Ironflame, how did you come up with it, and why is it spelled as a single word?
Well, that's a tough one because I can't really remember honestly coming up with the name. I remember tooling over a bazillion names when the time came to choose a name, because let's be honest, they've all been thought up, right? I mean, what hasn't been taken nowadays? So I think I remember it being down. I may have had it down to like 3 names, and I think I left it to friends, and I think I put the 3 names in a hat and I passed it around to friends and said, well, what would you pick? What would you choose for if it was your band name? And I think more people chose Ironflame than anything else. So that's why I went with it. And I don't know. I never really thought about it being all one word. It just felt like it always should have been one word. That's another good question, but it wasn't a conscious decision. It always just kind of was that way. And it definitely bites me in the butt a lot, because people write it out as 2 words all the time. People search for it on the internet as 2 words and it doesn't come up. So, it's definitely, hasn't done me any favors, but it is what it is, and I'm sticking to it. I still like the name.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Finally, tell me about your life outside of the music. What do you do when you're not writing, playing, or recording?
Well, as I said, I was a business partner with my good friend. We owned a tattoo shop together, so now I am the sole proprietor of that tattoo shop. It's been around for 25 years. It's got a lot of heritage built up in the local community here. I'm pretty involved in my own local community and the growth surrounding it. I'm part of a few different think tanks locally here that are all formed for the sole purpose of the betterment and the growth of the community that I live in, which is Martins Ferry, Ohio. I also have a family. I have a long-term girlfriend that I've been with for 17 years. I don't have any children, but I do have animals that I love dearly, and they're my family. And my friends and my coworkers I consider my family, and I try and get out and enjoy life as much as I can when I'm not out, doing anything musically involved. I try to spend time with the people that I care about.
Thank you for speaking to me.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
And good luck with the new album.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that as well.